Moin moin and hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another ear tip review, and today I have for you another SpinFit ear tip. We are checking out the SpinFit Neo, and we directly straight jump into it because I think most of you know what SpinFits do or what their stick is. And yeah, the Neo is definitively, again, it's a rather expensive tip out there. Usually I see them for like 10 euros on sale even, so that's about $12 to $13. So they're definitively more expensive. And size-wise, they are offered in most things you want, would ever want at least. There's SS with 10mm, S with 11, M with 12.2, L 13.3, and XL with 14. So this is again wide variety of ranges, basically covering everything you would want. So I think they did a pretty good job in that. And yeah, for other premium ear tips, I mean, some Asla ear tips are pretty similar, about like 10 to 12, sometimes 13 bucks per pair. So this definitively fits the ultra premium ear tip bracket price wise. And then next we come to comfort and fit. Let me now show you the ear tip in detail here. This is the ear tip. And in direct comparison, let me get the SpinFit Omni, which was my favorite SpinFit so far. And as you can see, the Omni is a noticeable wider outlet, but it's also shorter and more ball shaped. And that means I do prefer the Omni over the Neo in basically all use cases. The Omni is also similar squishable to this one. Let me just show you here. Pretty squishable. This one has a bit less squishy outlet overall, but not too much of a big deal. But what I do think is a big deal, that the bending point here of this ear tip is very far into the front, and the ear tip is relatively long. I mean, you can see the back of the core here even extrudes a bit here. And that means this basically only works for me for pretty damn short nozzle IEMs, even with the SS I have here. And I mean, even then, it's somehow still not that great. I do prefer the Omni basically in really all cases here. But again, the SpinFit mechanism is implemented well. As you can see, if I just try to squeeze it a bit, it bends pretty easily. It squishes relatively easy still on the front. So this should still be a pretty comfortable ear tip for most people. It's just a bit difficult for me to find the right nozzle for it. And yeah, that also means in terms of noise isolation, I have a bit of struggle to get this to fit right. If the nozzle is a bit too long, then yeah, it doesn't really insert, like it inserts as deep, yeah, but the IM doesn't really fit in my pinner, and that means it doesn't isolate that well. But if it's too short, then it doesn't seal correctly, and it's kind of weird. If I get this fit correctly though, it's still not that great isolating. The material is relatively thin on the inside core here, you can see. And then also the outlet, I mean, there isn't slight ring around it, but not too much. So yeah, it's like a 5 or 5.5 on my artificial isolation scale. Where again 0 or 1 is a really flimsy, thin silicone ear tip, and 10 is a really dense, perfectly fitting foam ear tip. So yeah, this is not great, but also not bad. It's about what you expect for other silicone ear tips. And then next again, shaping sound in two sections. Subjective, where I tell you how it sounded to me without looking at measurements. And then objective. First again, subjective. So in general, I perceive this as being pretty damn average. It's not darker, it's not brighter. Maybe there's a tad less upper treble, but if so, just a few decibels, like 2 to 3 decibels or something like that. So barely noticeable to my ear. And it could also be just day-to-day differences, because usually I don't like flip the ear tips from like day-to-day. So might be just I heard it differently on one day to the other. Yeah. And then, yeah, we come to objective here. So this is again measured with my coupler and with or without the pinner. And I mean, you can see by general measurements in basically everything here, they do measure pretty similar to most other ear tips. They are not darker, they are not brighter. Only in comparison to some of the liquid silicone ear tips that I would consider bright ear tips, this does measure differently, like a bit darker than that. But it's not much there. So you would say this is a pretty average ear tip here. The only thing that I saw in common with most measurements I have done, that it does seem to dampen frequencies at 15K and above, according to Coupler, which again isn't really accurate past 10K. So take this measurement with a grain of salt, and similar to the Tangsan Kai Noble, for instance, It might be that this is a trend that is audible. To my ear, it's not that audible. So again, if it is happening in real life, it's not that many decibels. So you can probably ignore the dampening of upper turbo frequencies. And then additional factors. As you saw with this one here, this comes with 2 inlets to mount on very thin outlet ear tips. And I didn't feel the need to use this. This here basically fits all of the nozzles I have. Again, note though, if you put this on really like wide outlets, it might be a bit too thin for that. But the 6.4 millimeters I could get on. I just would be careful when removing it, because the SpinFit mechanism here in the middle, here at the front, is a bit sensitive. I've already torn apart 2 pair of SpinFit CB360 because it's a bit sensitive here. So again, push from the back, not pull out the front here. And material-wise, it's just silicone. It's not particularly sticky. It's not particularly smooth either. It's just a random silicone out there. And that means you should be able to just wash this, use alcohol, whatever. Personally, I would still just use warm water and soap, but I think you should be okay with anything. And then again, what I said before, the bending point here is very far to the front. And that means, again, for long nozzles, doesn't really work very well for me. And I needed a shorter nozzle to get this to fit right. And even then, I had trouble to get this to fit well enough. So I get a good isolation of the IEM and like still being relatively comfy and wear. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Coming then to the conclusion here, and yeah, I mean, the Neo is a totally fine ear tip. It's not bad in any way. On the right nozzle, it can fit pretty well, but getting the right nozzle can be a bit difficult, and I would always say the SpinFit Omni probably is the better ear tip for most people. And even if you have a longer nozzle, well, you could just up the Omni in size, and then you would still have a probably more comfy ear tip. Most of this, in my opinion, is down to this ear tip being not as squishy, because this one is pretty damn soft. So I would recommend the Omni if you want a SpinFit with a premium ear tip in that as well. I would recommend the Omni over the Neo. But certainly if you have a bunch of short nozzle ear IMs out there, well, I think this still makes sense. But again, I won't recommend it because it's just a bit too expensive, and I think even in its price, the Omni is just the better ear tip. And yeah, that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. Questions, recommendations, or criticisms, please leave a comment. Donspektor out.